What y'all think about Boosie? I don't care about his fan base. I don't care about none of that. This on Tubi movie.
Imagine grinding your way from a floor full of roaches in Memphis to the Grammy red carpet, only to have your own sister go nuclear on the entire internet. This isn't just another rap beef. This is a family war that just dragged one of the biggest legends in the game, Boosie Badazz, right into the line of fire. It all started when Boosie decided to give his unsolicited 2 cents on the Breakfast Club about family entitlement.
I want to speak on something right quick. I ain't siding with Glorilla. I ain't siding with Glorilla.
But he had no idea he was poking a sleeping giant. Victoria Woods, Glorilla's big sister, didn't just clap back. She went scorched earth. She called him washed, mocked his Tubi budget movies, and dropped the viral line heard round the world. I thought we were cool, we diabetic. But beneath the jokes and the memes lies a story of deep-rooted trauma, foster care, and a 2015 hotel incident involving a firearm that changed everything. Why is one sister a millionaire while the other is demanding exactly $2,500? Why did Tory Lanez get involved from behind bars? And did Glorilla really leave her mom punching a clock at FedEx? We're diving deep into the mud today. This is the real, raw story of the Woods family fallout. To understand how this house of cards collapsed, you have to look at the man who accidentally threw the first match. We're talking about Boosie Badazz. Now, if you know Boosie, you know the man has never met a microphone he didn't like or a situation he didn't have a strong opinion on.
Juvenile said, if I get everybody, I'm going to be broke, man. Think if I got $1 million. I got 7 brothers and sisters.
He's the unofficial street philosopher of the South, and usually his takes are about the industry or his own wild legal battles. But on February 9th, 2026, Boosie walked into the Breakfast Club studio and stepped right into a Memphis landmine. Charlemagne and the crew brought up the tension brewing between Glorilla and her family. Now, Boosie could have played it safe. He could have said, "That's family business. I'm staying out of it." But that's not in Boosie's DNA. Instead, he decided to break down the math of being a rap star. He told the world that people see the jewelry and the music videos and think these artists are sitting on Scrooge McDuck vaults of gold. He kept it a stack, saying,
You got Boosie raccoon eyes talking about some, I'm not on nobody's side, but I'm just saying you are taking side.
"Every artist you think got 100 million ain't got 100 million. He painted a picture of his own life, explaining that if he hit every one of his 7 siblings and his parents with 100 racks, his $1 million bag would be smoked before he even turned around. He thought he was being neutral. He kept repeating, "I ain't siding with Glow, I ain't siding with the brother." He even brought up the juvenile line about how, if you try to take everyone with you, you'll end up broke yourself. In Boosie's mind, he was dropping gems on financial literacy and the burden of fame. But to Victoria Woods, sitting back in Memphis watching that clip, it didn't sound like neutral advice.
And y'all got a big platform, so hell yeah, I got a problem with y'all. Why the y'all ain't got no breakfast up there? It's called a Breakfast Club.
To her, it sounded like Boosie was being a raccoon-eyed spokesperson for her sister, giving Glorilla a public excuse to keep the bag to herself. Victoria didn't wait for a formal invitation to the beef. She hopped on live immediately, and the energy was pure go mode. She didn't care about Boosie's legendary status in the South. She didn't care about his fan base. She looked right into the camera and called him washed. She took aim at his recent career moves, mocking his transition into the independent film world. "This old Tubi movie moves," she sneered. She was basically saying Boosie is out here making low-budget joints because his rap check stopped cleared, so he needs to stop worrying about a millionaire's bank account and worry about his own lighting. The insults got personal, fast. Victoria brought up Boosie's controversial history with the LGBTQ+ community, specifically his long-standing, one-sided beef with Lil Nas X. She called him a whole hypocrite, pointing out that he spends his days judging people for their lifestyle choices, while his own music is filled with references to guns, drugs, and reckless living. She was asking the question the internet had been whispering for years. How can you judge a pop star for being gay when you're out here promoting the very things that land people in the dirt or behind bars? But then, in the middle of this high-octane dragging, Victoria dropped the line that instantly turned into a TikTok sound and a Twitter meme. She stopped, looked genuinely confused for a second and said, "I thought we were cool. We diabetic." The internet absolutely lost it. You had people in the comments crying, laughing because, in the middle of a vicious verbal beatdown, she found common ground in their shared medical condition. It was the diabetic bar heard round the world. It turned a serious family dispute into a viral comedy sketch. And honestly, credit where it's due, Boosie took it on the chin. He didn't get aggressive. He hopped on X, formerly Twitter, and called her his diabetic twin. He even called her skin ball with a laugh and told her he was just speaking on life situations because he's got his own sibling problems. For a second, it looked like the tension might de-escalate into a joke. But Victoria wasn't done. She wasn't just mad at Boosie, she was mad at the platform. She took a swing at the Breakfast Club too, asking why they even call it that when they don't have any breakfast up there. She told Charlemagne and anyone else watching that if they mention her name, they better be strapped with a comeback because she's sending shots right back. She was making it clear, she wasn't just some disgruntled relative. She was a woman who felt she had been silenced for 4 years, and now that she had the floor, everyone was going to get a piece of her mind. This wasn't just about Boosie's comments anymore. This was a verbal fade that was months, if then years in the making. You have to understand the optics here. In the rap world, family is supposed to be the day ones. You see the videos of rappers buying their mom's houses and their brothers' fleets of cars. That's the dream. So when the public sees a sister of a superstar calling out a legend like Boosie just to get a point across about her sister's greed, it touches a nerve. The blogs were on fire. The fight footage headlines were everywhere, even though no physical hands were thrown. The fight was in the words, the accusations, and the raw emotion Victoria was pouring out. She was tired of the neutral talk. To her, there is no neutral when you're struggling to survive while your sister's on billboards. She saw Boosie as just another person caping for the winner while she was left in the trenches. What people didn't realize at the time was that this wasn't a random outburst. This was the pressure cooker finally exploding. Victoria wasn't just some hater looking for a handout. She was a woman carrying the weight of a childhood that most people can't even imagine. She was talking about a life where McDonald's was the lottery. She was talking about a home with 12 people, where the lights were always a day away from being cut off. So when Boosie talked about breaking off siblings, Victoria didn't see numbers on a screen. She saw the faces of 9 other brothers and sisters who she felt were being left behind in the mud. She saw a father who had to rob Peter to pay Paul, borrowing $20 from a neighbor only to have to pay back $40. She saw a mother who she claimed was still punching a clock at FedEx, while the world believed she was retired and living in luxury. The diabetic twin moment might have been funny to the internet, but to Victoria, it was just a brief pause in a war she was ready to fight to the end. She was standing on business, and she didn't care who she had to run through to make sure her truth was heard. Boosie was just the first casualty. He stepped into a Memphis family feud thinking he was a referee, but Victoria Woods reminded him, and the rest of the world, that in this house there are no referees. There's only the ones who made it out and the ones who are still waiting for their turn to eat. And as part 1 of this saga closed, the internet realized this wasn't going to be a quick trending topic. This was a deep-seated, multi-generational explosion that was about to pull back the curtain on the Big Glow persona and reveal the messy, painful reality of the Woods family. Victoria was just getting started, and she was about to take her grievances from a cell phone live to the biggest platforms in the country, demanding that the world see what happens when the fame doesn't reach the front porch of the house you grew up in. The battle lines were drawn, the receipts were being gathered, and the $2,500 demand was about to become the most controversial number in hip-hop. To really understand why Victoria Woods is coming for Boosie and her superstar sister with this much venom, you have to leave the bright lights of the Grammy stages and the Hollywood Hills. You have to go back to the mud. We're talking about Fraser, Memphis, a place where the pavement is cracked and the dreams are often shorter than the fuse on a firecracker. Victoria didn't just wake up one day and decide to be the villain in Glorilla's success story. According to her, this pain has been simmering in her chest for 4 long years, watching the world fall in love with a version of her family that she claims is a total fantasy. Victoria sat down for a raw interview with DJU-TV, and she didn't just talk. She took us into the trenches of a household with 12 people under one roof. Imagine 10 kids in a house where there was never enough of anything. Not enough space, not enough food, and definitely not enough money. Victoria painted a haunting picture of her and her siblings, including a young Gloria, sharing a single air mattress on a floor where roaches were the only things moving faster than the kids. She talked about how they used to crack jokes and make each other laugh just to drown out the sound of their own stomachs rumbling. She said they'd be cracking jokes while their stomachs were touching their spines. That's a level of poverty that stays in your bones, even after you start wearing designer clothes. In the Woods household, life wasn't about making it was about making it to tomorrow. Their father worked at the post office, but with a family that big, the check was gone before it even hit the kitchen table. Victoria described a cycle of survival that sounds like a movie script. She talked about a neighbor named Mr. Raymond, the man who became the family's unofficial bank. Their pops would go to Mr. Raymond to borrow $20 just to keep the lights on or put a little something on the stove. But in the streets, nothing is free. Mr. Raymond was taxing. If you borrowed 20, you owed 40. It was a game of robbing Peter to pay Paul every single week, and the family was always behind. For Victoria, the most eventful part of her childhood was something most people take for granted, a trip to McDonald's. She said getting a hot and spicy was like winning the lottery. It wasn't a quick lunch, it was a celebration. It was an event. It was only when Victoria was sent into foster care that she realized how abnormal her life actually was. She described the culture shock of her foster mother telling her to just go grab a snack from the store. Victoria couldn't process it. In her world, a bag of chips was a blessing, not a given. She even dropped a line that stopped the whole interview. She said the food people get in jail was better than what they had at the crib. Think about that. When your home life makes a jail cell look like a buffet, you're coming from a place of deep, soul-crushing scarcity. This is the foundation Victoria's standing on. In her mind, the Woods siblings suffered together. They starved together. They foster cared together. So according to the code of the mud, when one person makes it, the whole team is supposed to eat. She watched Glorilla blow up in 2022 with FNF, and she says she was genuinely happy at first. She was proud of her little sister. But then came the moment that changed everything. The green text betrayal. Victoria says she tried to text Gloria to congratulate her, to show love, to stay connected. But the bubble turned green. Glorilla had changed her number and hadn't given it to her own sister. When Victoria asked their mother for the new digits, she says the answer was a cold no. Their mom reportedly told her she couldn't give out the number without Gloria's permission. From that point on, Victoria felt like she was being erased from the script. She claimed her mom's head got gassed up by the sudden influx of cash and fame, and suddenly the sister who shared the roachy mattress was a stranger. But if you ask Glorilla's other siblings, they'll tell you a completely different story. They'll tell you that the reason Gloria moved the way she did wasn't about greed, it was about protection. This is where the story takes a dark, jagged turn. While Victoria was on the internet demanding $2,500 per sibling to keep her mouth shut, the internet detectives and Glorilla's other siblings brought the receipts from 2015. There is a court document floating around that tells a terrifying story. Back in 2015, long before the fame, there was an argument at a hotel in Memphis. Glorilla was only 15 years old. Victoria was 19. The report alleges that Victoria didn't just argue with her little sister, she pulled a strap on her. The police report says Victoria pulled a gun on Gloria during a domestic dispute, and the weapon was later found hidden outside the hotel. Victoria caught charges behind it. When you hear that, the whole dynamic of this family beef shifts. We're not talking about a sister who forgot where she came from. We're talking about a sister who might be traumatized by the person demanding money from her. If your big sister pulls a gun on you when you're a child, do you owe her a check when you become a millionaire? That's the question the internet started asking. Victoria denied the incident flat out in her interviews, saying it never happened and claiming her siblings lied to CPS to get her sent back to a home she hated. But the paperwork exists, and it's the shadow that hangs over every viral live she does. The tension only got worse when Victoria went after the biggest fact of Glorilla's success story, her mother's retirement. For years, the narrative has been that Gloria retired her mom and took care of her parents. But Victoria hopped on live and called it fake imaginary-ass news. She claimed their mother is still punching a clock at FedEx every single day. She mocked the idea that Gloria had done anything substantial for the family, saying she does little oohs and ahs, but leaves the real struggle intact. This was the ultimate low blow. It forced Glorilla's other siblings out of the woodwork. Her brother and sister jumped on live, looking visibly heated to set the record straight. They asked the world, "Since when is having a job a bad thing?" They claimed Gloria had given their mother $500,000, bought her a house, bought their father a car, and frequently slid family members thousands just to check in. They painted Victoria as a pathological liar and a finesse artist who has a history of bringing grimy people around the family who ended up robbing their parents' house. The divide in the Woods family is now a canyon. On one side, you have Victoria, who feels like she's being punished for the past and left to rot in the same trenches they all barely survived. On the other side, you have the rest of the siblings and Gloria, who seem to view Victoria as a dangerous liability, someone who chose the streets and burned every bridge she ever walked across. Victoria's demand of $2,500 sounds small to the average person, but in this war, it's a mountain. She told TMZ that if Gloria had just sent that small amount to each sibling, she never would have gone public. She wouldn't have bashed her, she wouldn't have leaked old fight footage, but because she felt ignored, she decided to burn the whole house down. She's acknowledging that she struck the match, but she's blaming the person who held the water. As part 2 comes to a close, the diabetic twin jokes are gone. The Tubi movie insults are just background noise. What's left is a family torn apart by a weapon, a workplace at FedEx, and a $1 million career that was supposed to be the family's ticket out, but instead became the very thing that split them in two. Just when you thought this family feud couldn't get any messier, the rest of the rap world decided to pull up a chair and start throwing gasoline on the fire. This wasn't just a Memphis thing anymore. It became the internet's favorite soap opera, and every rapper with a platform and an opinion felt the need to weigh in. The biggest, loudest voice to enter the chat was none other than Finesse 2 times. Now, Finesse is a Memphis native himself, so he felt he had the home court advantage to speak on the Woods family drama. He didn't hold back either. He hopped on his Instagram stories, reposted Victoria's TMZ clip, and basically told her to shut the hell up and get to work. He told her there's a truck stop in every city and a million ways to stack paper that don't involve begging your sister for a handout. But if Finesse thought Victoria was going to be intimidated by a major label rapper, he clearly hadn't been paying attention to her previous rounds with Boosie. Victoria came back at Finesse with a level of vitriol that left the blogs shaking. She went straight for his looks, his career, and his personal life. She called him a Build-A-Bear-looking ass and mocked his transition from being a full-time rapper to a streamer. She was asking the world how a man goes from being the next big thing in Memphis rap to sitting in front of a computer screen for donations. She even took aim at his girlfriend and his kids, telling him that if he's going to use her name for views, he needs to be cutting her a check. She was treating Finesse like a warm-up round, laughing through the whole live while telling him to stay in his lane. But while Victoria was busy trading shots with Finesse, the rest of the industry was picking sides like it was a championship game. You had legends like The Game coming out and saying that just because you share blood doesn't mean you're owed a bank account. You had Freddie Gibbs on X just posting laughing emojis, watching the chaos like it was a Netflix special. The consensus from the industry side was clear. Victoria was out of pocket, but the internet audience was split. Some people saw a sister who had been left behind in the dirt, while others saw a woman who was trying to extort her own blood for clout. Then came the moment that genuinely felt like a glitch in the simulation. As Victoria was screaming into her phone about how Gloria wouldn't give her $2,500, a notification popped up on her screen. It was an Apple Pay transfer for the exact amount she had been demanding, and the sender, Tory Lanez. Yes, the same Tory Lanez who is currently sitting in a prison cell for the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion, a woman who just happens to be one of Glorilla's closest collaborators and friends. The irony of that moment was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Victoria posted the receipt for the whole world to see, thanking Tory for doing what her own sister wouldn't do. The internet absolutely imploded. People were calling it the ultimate chess move in petty history. By Tory sending that money, he wasn't just helping a woman in need, he was sending a direct message to the entire Big Glow camp. It turned Victoria into a pawn in a much larger industry chess game. But for Victoria, it was a win. She had her money and she had a new hero to brag about. But that win came with a heavy price tag. The backlash from Glorilla's fans was swift. They started digging into Victoria's past just as hard as she had been digging into Gloria's. Suddenly, the fight footage Victoria had used to try and humiliate her sister was being turned back on her. Old videos of Victoria herself getting beat up after an alleged robbery attempt started circulating. The hypocrite labels were flying. People were pointing out that she was out here trying to destroy her sister's reputation for not being solid, while her own history was filled with the kind of grimy behavior that justifies why someone would change their number and go ghost. Victoria started claiming that the retaliation was becoming legal. She told her followers that her Facebook page, the one she was using to monetize her rants, got reported and snatched down, wiping out her income. She even claimed that people were calling the monitors of her GPS ankle brace, trying to get her in trouble with the law. She was realizing that when you take a fight to the internet fights back with everything it's got. She was a woman on a monitor, trapped in her house, fighting a war against a superstar with $1 million PR machine behind her. The most heartbreaking part of this entire saga came during her final moments with DJ UTV. The interviewer, trying to find a shred of hope in the wreckage, asked Victoria a simple question. What would it take for you and your sister to hug again? The room went quiet. Victoria, who had spent hours screaming and dragging everyone from Boosie to the Breakfast Club, couldn't even give a straight answer. She looked defeated for the first time. She said, "I went against my sister on TMZ. There ain't no coming back from it." She admitted that the bridge wasn't just burned, it was pulverized. She acknowledged that she was the one who struck the match, but she stood by her fire. She dropped a line that goes against every family-first narrative we've ever been taught. Blood is not thicker than water. To Victoria, family isn't about DNA. It's about who stays in the mud with you when the rain starts falling. She felt that the second Gloria stepped out of that mud and didn't reach back to pull her out, the blood bond was severed. She asked a haunting question that lingered in the air. Everybody is telling me to let it go because she's my sister. But is anyone telling her to reach out because I'm her sister? It's a fair point in a world that always demands the struggling family member be the bigger person. But it ignores the trauma that led to the silence in the first place. As it stands today, there is no happy ending in sight for the Woods family. Glorilla is still at the top of the charts, moving surgical and keeping her circle tight. Victoria is still on the internet, standing on her truth, even if that truth has cost her everything. Boosie has moved on, Finesse has moved on, and the $2,500 Tory Lanez cent has probably been spent. What's left is a story of 10 kids from Memphis who once shared a single mattress and laughed through the hunger. They used to be each other's only protection against a world that didn't care if they ate or starved. Now that same world is watching them tear each other apart for likes and views. Victoria said at the end of her interview that none of this was planned, that destiny and fate are two different things, and maybe she's right. It was their destiny to make it out of the mud, but it was their fate to be broken by the very success they prayed for. This isn't just a viral moment. It's a tragedy wrapped in a meme, a reminder that sometimes the people you starve with are the last people you'll ever get to eat with. At the end of the day, this whole situation is a masterclass in how fame can turn a childhood home into a battlefield. It leaves us with a question that doesn't have an easy answer. Does a $1 million check come with a manual on how to fix a broken family? Or is some damage just too deep for any amount of money to repair? We've seen the receipts, heard the rants, and watched the industry legends weigh in, but the real truth is probably buried somewhere back in that house in Memphis. Now, I want to hear from you. Was Victoria Woods completely out of pocket for taking this to TMZ and dragging Boosie into the mix? Or do you think Glorilla should have looked out for the people who shared that roachy air mattress with her? Is it pure entitlement, or is it just the code of the streets? Drop a comment below and let me know if you're team protect your peace or team family first. If you're feeling the way we break down these stories, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a deep dive into the realest drama in the game. We're peeling back the layers on the stories everyone else is too afraid to touch. Thanks for rocking with us. Stay solid, and we'll see you in the next one.